Welcome to the Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today we have with us Julian Raven. Julian Raven is an artist, activist, and relentless truth teller whose life has been defined again and again by a willingness to confront power head-on. From federal courtrooms to local government chambers, from the Smithsonian battle to the unfolding DEC fight in New York, his journey has been forged in the fire of refusing to look away, refusing to comply with convenient silence, and refusing to surrender meaning to the comfort of fear. For Raven, speaking truth to power isn't a slogan, it's a survival instinct. Without truth, life collapses into moral vacancy. Without resistance, tyrants fill the void. That conviction has carried him across a lifetime of creative, civic, and legal struggle, and it fuels his belief that America's greatest purpose has always been exactly this: to empower ordinary citizens to stand up, speak out, and push back. The nation's experiment in freedom only survives when individuals exercise the courage it demands. As Raven puts it, you either speak or you surrender. His work on canvas, in court, and in community is a testament to choosing the former, no matter the cost. Well, hi, Julian. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today. I'm really excited to have you, and I think you're doing such important and critical work. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Denise, and it's great to be with you, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, thank you for being on. So, just starting off, when did you first realize that speaking truth to power wasn't just something you believed in, but something that you had to do to survive?
It goes back to when I was a young man. I think one of the first recollections I have is when I was probably, I think I was maybe 8 years old, and it was eight. It could have been a little after 9, but it was a young boy, and I was at the time I wanted to become a veterinarian.
Okay.
I loved nature. I was always, as an artist, obviously I was working in with pictures, but I loved nature. I read, and I grew up in Spain, so I was out in nature, very similar to California, very beautiful in southern Spain. So I was always out with nature and creatures and examining, catching. My mother said that when I came home and sat on the sofa, it was only a few minutes before all these bugs would be crawling out of my pockets, so onto the sofa. So I had a great affection for nature and creation and the wonder of the animal world. So I'm at school in a science class in a very small English-speaking school in southern Spain where I grew up, in a town called Marbella. And the teacher is she's a young woman, I don't know, mid-20s maybe, if I remember rightly. And we're talking about insects. And so she's teaching, and she starts teaching about spiders. And she's teaching that spiders are insects. And spiders, and I knew enough at the time that they are not insects. Spiders have 8 legs. They're arachnids. So I shoot my hand up right there, and I challenge her in front of the whole class that what she's teaching is inaccurate. And boy, did I get shot down in flames by an offended teacher who was too proud to admit in front of a class. I was dressed down and berated, like, how dare you challenge me, type of thing, that I can remember. It was a negative experience for me, but I had no choice but to raise my hand and speak the truth to power. And that's my first recollection of where you're challenging an authority who is wrong, who is presenting falsehoods. And she wasn't obviously doing it deliberately. She just was ignorant. She was a young girl that thought that spiders were bugs and they were insects. Well, they were not. They are arachnids. And so that's pretty much a good little portrait of my first interaction speaking truth to power. And it's gone on since then. I'm the type of person that if I see injustice, I am compelled to jump in. At school, if I saw kids being bullied, I would just throw myself in there to try and pull out the individual who was getting bullied.
Yeah.
And so I just had that natural inclination towards trying to do, and you don't have a choice. You just act. You just do it. It's wrong and you do it.
No, that's really beautiful though. But what gave you that courage to keep pushing on? Because I could have even imagine as a young child being shut down like that by someone in power can be really intimidating and, maybe even make people be like, oh, I don't want to speak out again because I don't want these kind of consequences. But yeah, what gave you that courage to keep like building your voice versus like shutting in?
Well, that is true. I mean, that's even with, if you talk about an experience, I think of the bullying. I can remember this one case when I jump in to save this kid and they all turn on me and then you're suddenly getting the boots from this group of boys that were, and so I think my love of the truth and, there's my whole journey, my spiritual journey, my journey to faith, my journey to from an atheist to a theist, my journey to becoming a Christian. There's a whole theme of my spiritual journey that is because of my love of the truth. And because I love the truth, I just do. I love what's true. The truth is beautiful. It's true. It's something so precious. Yeah. As I've grown up in this world that you just can't help to stand on the side of truth if you see it being bent, if you see it being deliberately manipulated to harm other people or for other people to use, to steal, to rob, to malign, anything. It's just what's true is true. So I have been compelled, and it's a good question that you asked because my mind is like sort of digging up all the early occurrences in my life. I've been compelled throughout my life to stand in the gap whenever I saw there was a gap. And the consequence, and you really get to the price question, which is really the massive issue with most people that I find, which is the consequence, the cost of standing for the truth. And it is inevitable. It is constantly a high price to pay for standing, high, very high. And ultimately, it may cost your life. You may pay with your life. But if life is worth living, from my perspective, in my opinion, compromise is not an option because the truth is more important than life. If you don't have truth, then you're living a compromised life. That's not life. That's compromise.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And, how has your identity as an artist shaped the way that you confront injustice and power?
Well, I have, as much as I've been an artist professionally in the last 10 decade, I did use early on, without really knowing about it, I was invited into different political, and I was never political until 10, 12, maybe. No, since I came to the US, the more that I learned about politics I got. But when I grew up in Spain, where I grew up as an English kid in Spain, I was never, it's just politics is not the same as it is here. So using art was not one of those things that I use. I just painted. I wanted to create beauty. But then these people that I knew were like, hey, we have this protest. We're going to do this rally and we want you to do it. And I painted my first political banner for them. Wow. Then I went to art college in London. I was at the Chelsea School of Art and it was a hotbed of political activism. And I was totally neutral. I didn't know, I had beliefs politically that I didn't really know what side of the aisle it fell on, but it wasn't the side of the aisle that fit at art school. I didn't know. I was totally politically naive, but the more that I shared what I thought was a good idea, it cost me. And right now, just so that you know, and for your audience, I'm a politically homeless person.
Okay.
I have been involved politically a lot in the past, walked away from the whole lot. And so right now I am in a no man's land, like a wilderness. I still believe what I believe. I haven't changed what I believe, but I just do not find association with either side of the political aisle here in the United States. I think it's both sides have gone off the deep end. Art and activism, it's a crucial part, no matter which side of the aisle. I would say the left side of the aisle is very much more effective, very much more active in using the visual arts and arts as a powerful communication language. The right side is completely useless, they don't see any value in it. And so, like I said, right now I find myself in a no man's land. And so art is a legitimate vehicle to communicate your ideas in very powerful ways.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. That's really beautiful. And so you've said that you either speak or you surrender. So what does surrender look like to you? And this is not just politically, but it can also be spiritually or morally.
Well, it's like the crucifixion of Jesus. It's like Jesus surrendering to the authorities, and they pick up a sword to, Peter picks up the sword to free him and fight the Romans, and he's like, nope, this isn't. He cuts off his ear and lets him see. He surrenders because in that context, and every context is different. That the strategy for each different context where there is a battle has a different posture to take. And in that setting, the greatest victory in human history was accomplished through surrendering to the authorities, surrendering to false accusation, not defending yourself in court. He was slandered. They said all this stuff about it wasn't true. And then surrendering his life at the end of it. All of those were the greatest examples of laying down in that context where that context would bring about the greatest victory, which was then the resurrection. So surrendering in many ways is always an option. And I think it can take different forms, is how we choose to fight or not fight, where we choose different battles or not to fight, and the posture that we take in that battle. So I think that we always have to consider that as a viable alternative, because not every battle is worth fighting. Sometimes your surrender is actually a place you can find victory.
No, I agree with that too. And I think especially since, I do a lot of like activism too. And I think it's that whole like pick and choose your battles, because I think if we like spread ourselves, you got to also watch out for like spreading ourselves out too thin or like risking burnout or something. So I definitely agree with you with that too. And thank you for bringing that up too.
No, not at all. It's a very important point for people who, like you said at the outset when we started, which is like that whole idea of, because there's so much that people are concerned about today, it's where do you start? What do you do? And I have a pretty simple philosophy, in the sense I call it the pothole 101, meaning that, if you have a pothole in your street that you keep hitting with your car, instead of cursing the pothole, get out, take a picture of it, find out who's in charge of the street, make the phone calls, write the letters, and take that one battle, just one, no more, and focus on that one battle until you prevail. And don't go and spread yourself too thin. Just pick the one battle. That's it. Just focus and call and write letters, and then one day have the photograph of the pothole all filled and nice and smooth, because you prevailed. And that's a very satisfying place to be. And the sad part is, Denise, and that is, because there's so much for people to be distracted with and be focused and not doing anything and not getting on with actually something pragmatic. They get so much social media distraction and so many potholes or so many problems. It's all true.
Yeah.
But there is one problem that every single person can focus on and not look at anything else and stay the course until that problem is resolved.
No, I love that imagery that you bring up. But one thing that it also brings up, though, is like that gratification, like being able to actually see the fruits of your labor. But, what do you think about, our fight for justice, if we might not even see like our how we accomplished or were successful even in our lifetimes, but we know that what we're doing now is going to impact like future generations. Though I think that's something that I think about too. Like, yeah, doing I've worked in nonprofit for many years, and it's not a like it's a thankless job a lot of times too. We do a lot of work and we don't get much in return, and sometimes people don't even like say thank you or acknowledge it, but
Yeah.
we know
Yeah.
that we're doing it. But it just like, I think what you say about the pothole, you could actually see it, but what if the work you do isn't visible, like you can't actually see it?
Well, then the reward has to be what you just said, where
Hmm.
you know you're doing the right thing, and that
Yeah.
should be sufficient for the self, for the conscience to be, yeah, this is I'm doing the right thing. I'm
Yeah.
doing the right thing, and I might not see the results. The pothole is good because it's a real solution right there
Hmm.
in front of you, and you can fix it and see results. And that's always, and
Yeah.
maybe sometimes you see that may be the place where you do take
Uh-huh.
on a smaller, realistically solvable problem alongside the big
Hmm.
problems that you may not see the results. So you take
Yeah.
on a little side job, side activism,
Okay.
just to get a
I love
result
that.
where
Yeah.
you can then feel like, yeah, look at that. I got that pothole. And then you see your buddy and you say, hey, Joe, what
Yeah.
pothole are you working on? And he's like, well, I'm working on Davis Street and First Street.
I
You know
love
that
that.
pothole? You say, yeah, I know that pothole. He said, well, I
Yeah.
got that. Imagine that world, Denise. If we
Yeah.
as a people was so organized in that sense,
Hmm.
responsible, civically involved, saying,
Yeah.
yeah, we all have it. If everyone, we have to find those things that can be solved
Yeah.
realistically to find the immediate reward, because there are so many issues in our community. I don't know what it's like. I live in a beautiful city in upstate New York, but it's dead.
Okay.
Upstate New York is a dead economic. This place has a lot of crime problems, and it's
Okay.
economically depressed. It's flat. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
city, but and it has a lot of problems. So
Yeah.
people are, unfortunately, our culture, our way of living has become so
Hmm.
entitled
Hmm.
that people think you just sit there and that people are going to fix it, and they don't.
Yeah.
Officials don't do it. Government, there's some do. Some are doing a good job. Some just do it because it's their job and they couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to enforce and to call and to make and to put the pressure on to
Yeah.
cause the change. And so, yeah, you've got. I'm in the big battles myself that are
Yeah.
long term and not seeing the results that I want to see yet.
I
But
know.
it's knowing that we're doing the right thing
Yeah.
and that you're doing something and it's for the right thing. There's a
Yeah.
great Christian writer that his name is A.W. Tozer, and
Okay.
his one of the quotes from him that I have always loved is that our only reward is doing the right thing in a wrong world. And
Okay.
that was
Yeah.
A.W. Tozer.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. And, I'd just love to talk more about your work. So, you've confronted power in federal courtrooms and government chambers. So, what do these spaces for you reveal about who is in power and, or who power is really designed to protect?
Ugh, that's a horrible question, Denise.
No, I think,
No,
yeah,
it's a meaning
yeah,
horrible meaning.
yeah,
It's like you want me to lift up you want me to lift up the rock. You really want to see? It's
yeah.
like
No, let's go there. Yeah, like, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that because it's
no. Of
really,
course,
yeah,
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 yeah. No, I know, but this is the reality of what we do. Is because it's shocking. What I can't understand about human nature, and it's not the way I'm wired, is
hmm,
that there can be people, and there are people, more people than we probably realize,
uh-huh,
that are perfectly content to live in a duality, a dual mode, where they have one
okay,
face to the public and one face hidden
yeah,
that is completely opposite to what they're present. And I don't
mhm,
understand that. It's like to me, being authentic is again being true,
right,
loving the truth, not that makes life worth living to me. It's like I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror in the morning and be like, yeah, I can live a life. I know I can
yeah,
true to myself. Those simple commitments of life are to me what make
hmm,
life valuable. You see, when people are so obsessed with trying to attain value from things and wealth and prestige and power, they all of those things, they're all tools to serve, in my opinion. But value, true value, comes from convictions of our values that we should have internally, our morals, and that our commitments that we hold as individuals. And so those things, to me, are what make life truly valuable. Again, it goes, and that's why I don't understand this thing, because I don't function like that. So it's why I think it's why I'm in conflict all the time with people that are, because those are the people that push into positions of power, and then from power they live out this duality, this corruption, and you're like, this is outrageous. This is just outrageous. So I think that, what I've learned in my journey in the Smithsonian case, and I'm dealing with it now in that other case that I'm dealing with, it has been so discouraging to me, because it's so shocking, because I was under the naive assumption that in the federal court system, the higher up the court you go, the more likely you are to get justice. On the Supreme Court facade, it has the words, equal justice for all.
Oh, okay.
But that's a lie. It should say equal justice for some, because that's the truth. And even though equal justice for all may be the noble objective, when you reach those, and I took my first case, and I am on case number 3 against the Smithsonian. I took my first case all the way to the Supreme Court. And Chief Justice John Roberts, who is the Chief Justice, like I said, of the U.S. Supreme Court, he's also the Chancellor of the Smithsonian Institution.
Oh, okay.
So once you reach the levels of power like that, their convenience to deny you your rights is expedient and triumphs over justice, because they're involved, and they would rather you be deprived of your rights than your case destabilize the apple cart, especially when the Supreme Court justice, is in the case. And he's in the case now again, my 3rd lawsuit. The way that I see it, they're just people like me. We're human beings. It's no different. We're citizens. We're all the same. There's just people with different levels of responsibility, and they carry a much higher level of responsibility civically than I do. That means that they're accountable even more so. And that America, the genius of our system is that we, the people, we, the people, hold power, or should. And then so we're responsible to hold to account those people who are entrusted with the power and the responsibility, the authority in whichever government field it is. So my present lawsuit, Denise, is, I don't think it's even in the notes. I think you're looking at lawsuits 1 and 2 maybe, but my present Smithsonian lawsuit is against the Smithsonian Institution, the Secretary of the Smithsonian, the Chancellor of the Smithsonian, John Roberts, the U.S. Congress, and the President of the United States, Donald Trump. I'm suing a lot of them. Because they are in all of their actions in the last year, which have all been in support of my ongoing lawsuits, all of their actions reveal, again, this terrible corruption of an institution, which is called the Smithsonian Institution, which is simply a private charitable trust. Well, the thing is with the Smithsonian that has to be understood is that the Smithsonian is a private charity. That's why it's called Smithsonian. It's named after James Smithson, an Englishman. He was from England. He gave his property to the United States to build him it's just a charity. It's like a church. It's a private charity that the U.S. government, the Congress, specifically accepted the charge of trustee of a private charitable trust. That's all it is. And even if the government is the trustee, it's a private trust. It is not a government agency. It is not an instrument of and the problem with the Smithsonian is that, and James Smithson in his will wanted it to be built in Washington. The Smithsonian Institution in its presentation of the content,
Mm-hmm.
is a private charity
Okay.
it's not a government agency. Its
Okay.
job is to fulfill the will of James Smithson,
Uh-huh.
not the will of the government, not the will of the president, not the will of Congress.
Okay.
It's not the will of, it's the will of James Smithson. That's
Okay.
how a charity like that is built. So
Mm-hmm.
what's been going on and why I'm suing the president is
Mm-hmm.
because even though I agree with the reason why he's trying to affect the content in its
Mm-hmm.
ideological sense,
Right.
from my perspective,
Uh-huh.
what he's doing is illegal. And because it's
Mm-hmm.
illegal, I'm suing him because
Yeah.
just because, and a lot of people, this is what I find out about, you go back to the question about finding out about,
Mm-hmm.
what people really care about.
Mm-hmm.
It's so disheartening when you find people say, well, yeah, I don't care what the law is now because as long as I agree with it, I don't care if he breaks the law. And you're like, well,
Yeah.
if we're not a nation of laws and a nation of, then we're lost. We're absolutely
Mm-hmm.
lost because if we
Yeah.
don't follow the law, then throw the whole thing out because it's all a big joke. You pick and choose when you decide
Yeah.
you like the law because it suits you or it doesn't suit you. The
Mm-hmm.
law should be cold. We should be like, you know what? The law is the law. Free speech is free speech. Whether you like it
Yeah.
or not, it's free speech. So the reason why I'm suing Donald Trump is
Mm-hmm.
because he has violated the law in the separation
Yeah.
of powers because he is the representative in the executive branch
Uh-huh.
meddling with the content of a museum that's under the responsibility of Congress. So he's stepping across the
Yeah.
separation of powers. And B, what he's doing is like the president going to the pastor of a church
Mm-hmm.
and saying, this is what you have to preach about this week. You're not allowed to
Yeah.
preach about this. Whether you agree or not with what the Smithsonian is doing, and I could argue that all
Mm-hmm.
day, it's
Mm-hmm.
not the job of the government to go in there and tell them
Yeah.
what it is. If it was a national museum, and that's the problem with the Smithsonian, which I was getting
Mm-hmm.
to, is that the Smithsonian was built right on the mall in Washington. So this problem
Okay.
of confusion of the
Yeah.
entity of this organization has
Mm-hmm.
existed because of its location and
Okay.
its scale. People look at it and assume this must
Yeah.
be the government because it's right on the mall. It's right next to Congress.
Right.
It's
Right.
right next to it's right between, it's between the Capitol and
Mm-hmm.
the White House. It's right
Uh-huh.
on the mall in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem of misunderstanding and,
Yeah.
again, citizen ignorance is so pervasive that I have encountered this for a decade now. Nobody that I have met, I've met one or two people who immediately said to me, nope, this is what it is. They knew.
Uh-huh.
The rest, and I'm talking about probably thousands of people in 10
Mm-hmm.
years, they all
Mm-hmm.
say the same thing. They think the Smithsonian is the government.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's not. It's a private charity. And that's why, again, like I said, I'm suing the president because he's not only violating the separation of powers, he's now
Okay.
stepping into the private domain, trying to tell them what
Yeah.
what can and cannot be shown.
Uh-huh.
And as much as I may choose to agree with what he's saying, I couldn't care less.
Okay.
The law is the law. And
Right.
you're breaking
Right.
the law using your executive power. And this goes back to your original question about,
Mm-hmm.
when people in power, they just think, oh, I could just do what I want. It's like, no, you can't. We're
Yeah.
a nation of laws
Yeah.
or we're not.
No, thank you for bringing that up too. And I think the issue with me too, so actually I do care about the content too, because I feel like the reason why I don't know so much about that specifically is just like I feel like there's this broader like erasure of especially I think communities of color, like dismantling DEI and also like, what history gets to be told, what doesn't, even when it comes to like, art and everything too. So I think it just like, I don't know. I feel like that's why I wanted to do this podcast too, to amplify those voices that I feel like this administration is trying to erase. But no, you bring up a good point too. It's just like, it's not
Yeah, well,
legal or like lawful the way they
the
do.
thing
Yeah.
with the thing with that again
Mm-hmm.
on and this is the big issue with the Smithsonian. If the Smithsonian was a national museum,
Oh, okay.
and the problem is, like, for example, my lawsuit against the National Portrait Gallery, they
Uh-huh.
have a wing in the Smithsonian called the National Portrait Gallery. The Smithsonian, so
Okay.
people again think it's the National Portrait Gallery. Well, that's
Okay.
just its
Okay.
name.
Okay.
Because even though you could have a a Russian national portrait gallery under the Smithsonian. You could have a Smith because it's a private charity. And the
Okay.
problem with Congress and what the government has allowed to happen has been to allow this institution to morph
Okay.
into a quasi governmental agency where
Mm-hmm.
people think it's the national agency of the government to express. It's not.
Yeah.
That is the problem. My
Right.
lawsuits have all
Okay.
been focused on getting to the Supreme Court for the
Okay.
Supreme Court to issue the ruling that says exactly what is the Smithsonian Institution. What is it?
Uh-huh.
Because once they define the institution's legal status, then
Mm-hmm.
people will know, well, the president can't be doing what he's doing. Whether
Yeah.
you agree with the content or not,
Okay.
he's breaking the law. Because until that happens, and I don't know if you know the story there. You
Mm-hmm.
see, did you know this when he fired the director of the National Portrait Gallery, Kim Sayat?
No, I heard about that. Again, I don't know too many of the details about that,
Right.
but yeah,
That
I
was
have heard
May
about
30th.
that.
Now, I've been
Mm-hmm.
suing her. I was suing her for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And that's the whole part of my lawsuit. So she's
Okay.
the painting that I had painting was my pro-Trump portrait in
Mm-hmm.
2017,
Okay.
17 that I had submitted to the Smithsonian. And
Mm-hmm.
she broke the law. She
Okay.
violated the law in every shape and form because of her hostility towards the president
Mm-hmm.
or incoming president. And so that was the basis for the lawsuit. So
Okay.
10 years later, or it was actually 8 years later, he attempts to fire her.
Okay.
And when he was re-inaugurated this year, and on the list of reasons in the White House why he was firing her, my case was the fourth case. It
Okay.
was this guy Raven's painting was blah blah blah, and it was true. What she did broke the law. She was a partisan activist pretending to be a nonpartisan museum curator. And this is the thing. And again, not knowing what you or your audience listens to, say, look, America is a great land of freedom where you can express your views and have whichever views you want. And this woman who was totally within her right, within a private non-trust institution, like a private art gallery, to express her political views. She did them in an institution that's a private trust that is bound by trust law of impartiality. She's bound by constitutional law because even though the Smithsonian is not a government agency, she works for the government. And the government is the trustee of the Smithsonian, so she has to abide by the Constitution. So she broke the law left, right, and center. And so but this is it's so wonderful. What happened is that he tried to fire her, and guess what she did the next day? She goes back to work. And the reason why she could go back to work was because what? She's more powerful than the president? Or it's just because the Smithsonian's a private institution, he can't fire her.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that was the point. So she went back to work, and this whole big thing, that story's all online, and my case is involved in it, which is, for me, was very good.
Yeah.
But she eventually then resigns because she knew that if she could have sued for their attempt to fire her illegitimately, but the facts were that she's already been called by the judge a partisan activist. She was already convicted as a partisan activist, which he said she was, which she was. So the point is that we're seeing this level of corruption on both sides of the aisle. And I've experienced it myself so many times by people using their positions of power to silence dissent, silence speech they don't like, from the left to the right and from the right to the left. It's going on all the time. And that to me is just, it's the sad part about it, because it's not about being, if you want to be impartial and work as a neutral person, you've got to have very strong, established character. Partisan activists in positions of power that should be neutral are a real problem on both sides of the aisle. It's going on all the time. And that's, I think, the answer to that question about what you discover when you look under the rock. It's very discouraging because it's happening. And the Smithsonian has been hijacked because they don't care about James Smithson. They don't care about James Smithson's will. They're using James Smithson's will as a
Okay.
license to fund their own personal agendas.
Okay.
That is very discouraging. So, as much as as much, and I called the president to resign. Like, for example, after January the 6th, I called him to resign. I stopped my support of him. I was like, this is a disgrace.
Yeah.
And in the Washington Times, it's right there on the second page. They did a major article. I flipped my painting
Cool.
upside down. I called him to resign, the whole 9 yards. There was a major issue, a major change in my life. And but the point of it is that we have to be people of conviction and act within the law, and then at the same time, I'm someone that has been fiercely involved in building bridges of dialogue to say, we need to learn to build community through, even in disagreement, that even when you disagree with people, to be able to sit down, talk, disagree respectfully, shake hands, and go out and have a beer afterwards. If you can't do that, you've lost your humanity.
No, I totally hear what you're saying, and thank you for that. But I think the challenge that I have with that is like, I understand that we need to like, go by the law, but what if like the law is harmful to like the people, like, this country? Or I feel like there's been laws throughout the history of this country too that is like specifically racist. I'm thinking of like the Chinese Exclusion Act or like different things that are law, but they're really harmful. So I think that's why, like, as activists too, like, I'm thinking like, we need to like figure out how to just live okay, but like, not be okay when it's something that harms us, even if it's someone in authority. How we talked about earlier with their teacher, like being in authority, like how, like, I don't know. I just want us to like speak out and fight against like when it's,
but that's right. And unfortunately, American law has had two faces to it.
Yeah.
But it's always been, and this is another part, you learn this as you get involved, that I've been, and you realize this, and the genius of the American system is as rotten as there are laws and legal decisions. You have that great decision in Plessy versus Ferguson, where these racist Supreme Court justices, 8 of them, ruled. It was basically the case of, I think it was whether they were defining this black man was whether he was a man or not, whether the Constitution applied to him or not, because it was some despicable application of twisted law. But the great dissent in that lawsuit was by this Justice Harlan, who in his dissent, he admits he's a racist. He admits he's a racist, but he says the law is the law. And the law is against you. And how can you be ruling? It's an amazing, amazing document when you read it.
Yeah.
So humanity is very sick. And from a Christian perspective, we are a sin-sick human race. And that is evident in corruption and in corrupt laws, even like what you mentioned. We are in one of the few places on earth where you can fight against it, where you can protest it, you can litigate, you can educate, you can activate, you can lobby, there are so many ways in which you can be involved in exposing and confronting and then attempting to overturn that. That might be the one law, if that's still on the books, that has to be overturned. Well, you know what? If somebody doesn't stick their teeth into it and fight it and to overturn it, it's not going to change. I don't know if it was Thurgood Marshall or who was the litigator who was litigating in the Brown versus Board of Education, but they were on a warpath in the courts. One of the great inspirations for me has been when Martin Luther King Jr. was in the Birmingham jail, and he wrote his letter to all these pastors who were telling him, "Oh, you should slow down in what you're doing." There were all these white pastors who were trying to dissuade him from what he was doing, because they're sitting there in their little comfortable world without an ounce of sensibility to the suffering of this other people group, trying to give them advice and say, "Oh, you need to slow down." It's all this rubbish. And he's like, "You know what? We have not accomplished anything except by two things." And he said, by peaceful protests and by litigation. And when I read that, and learned that many years ago. Those to me are the avenues of change, real change, in this peaceful protests and litigation in our setting, in our culture, in our context, and not to let up. You have to keep on keeping on and keeping on the pressure until it changes. And we've seen those changes, and I know and believe that the only way that real positive change happens is if you keep the pressure on, because eventually the people in power, a lot of them they're either cowards or they're just compromised people. They can't stand it when the courtyard is filled with people with pitchforks. That's a sort of hyperbole of a protest there. That's more like a revolution nearly. But if people, and this is the problem that you have probably experienced, is that the majority of people don't want to fight. They don't want to get involved.
I wonder if it's that they don't know how to, though. I think that's why, like, with my guests on this podcast, I ask people, like, how, what tangible steps can people take to get involved? So I don't know. I think I like to think of myself more like optimistic than pessimistic. So I'm thinking, like, maybe people aren't getting involved because, like, they don't know how, versus like, oh, people aren't getting involved because they don't care. So
no, but there's truth to both of it. There's truth on both sides, of course, because education is part of the issue. The human experience is unfortunately the case where, if it's not affecting me, like the white pastors, they're just sitting there in their comfortable study, preparing their sermons, and it's not affecting me. And they had the gall and the nerve to try to tell this guy whose whole people group is being crushed, to tell them to just calm down a little bit, slow down. It's like, it's just the indifference. So the human condition, whether people are affected personally, has a lot to do with whether they'll get involved. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Then the human condition, even Thomas Jefferson writes about it in the Declaration of Independence. People are well too accustomed to allowing wrongs to continue to be wrong, and human beings will allow injustice to an unbelievable degree, keep turning their eye from it, not wanting to be involved. Don't get me involved. I don't want to be involved. I'm not going to look. I'm going to pretend it's not. They will do that here, and it's the majority that I've found out. And then you go back to, whether it's education, human nature, they're afraid. They're legitimately just trying to survive, or they're just trying to provide for their family. But they don't realize that the more that they compromise, the more that evil prospers. It's like in Nazi Germany. Yeah. It's the same problem happened under Hitler. The people just sit there and they get worse, and they get the whole conscience of a nation is moved because they don't do anything. Yeah. And there's another amazing person, the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Have you heard of him?
No, I don't think so.
The Christian minister. Yeah. There's someone that would be very good for you to see either the movie or read the book, Bonhoeffer's books. He was a Christian pastor. He was philosophically a pacifist, wanted nothing to do with war, but then was so incensed at what Hitler was doing. And all the pastors, the majority of them in Germany, they all sided with Hitler. They all bowed down and compromised. And he's like, no. Yeah. He's like, and he was then, the biggest crisis of conscience that he had was that he was a pacifist. So when he got involved in a conspiracy to assassinate Hitler, he had to completely change his philosophy. And his philosophy was, he was a complete pacifist. He believed in non-violent intervention. As a Christian, he had interpreted the gospel to mean pacifism. But then he had this image, this illustration he was confronted with, which is, you see a guy sitting in a car with the engine running, he just mowed down all these children with his car. He just drove over all these kids. They're all dead in the street. And it's parked on the side of the road, his engine's running, and his car's pointed towards a group of another 50 children. He's about to drive down the street and ran these other children down, and you're standing there with a shotgun in your hand.
Okay.
And he was seeing himself standing there with a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? And he's a pacifist. Pacifists
Okay.
would say, I'm not going to do anything. And he was confronted by that in Nazi
Oh,
Germany. And he realized
yeah.
that if he didn't act, not acting would be worse. It would be
Yeah.
the bigger sin. And then he got involved with the conspiracy. They tried to assassinate Hitler, and the
Yeah.
assassination failed. They caught him. He was hung for what he did.
Yeah.
He lost his life. So,
Yeah.
this is the reality we face. And, I think being true to our convictions
Mm-hmm.
and then acting is what's so important. And unfortunately, human nature is that
Yeah.
you have to act to be an example. You have to be an example, because if you are a courageous person and you're courageously
Mm-hmm.
engaged in standing for what's right, you
Yeah.
will inspire other people, even if they don't
Yeah.
come and chat, give you an applause. You'll inspire other people off to your left or right. They'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
they'll stand up and start doing something.
Yeah. No, what I'm hoping, like that I can help people see is like how interconnected we are. Just how you're talking about like, oh, it's doesn't affect me, then, why should I care? But it's just like even though you don't think it directly affects you, in some way it does indirectly affect you in one way or another.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think there was this one, it's been so long, but there was this poem or something. I don't know if you've heard of it. Does this start with like first they came with the Jews and for the Jews and like it goes through different like groups and then finally like, oh, and now I'm by myself and no one's here to stand for me. It's just like
Yep.
because you didn't stand for other people, then no
Yep.
one's there for you. But I think for me in my life, because my own personal family history, my grandparents on both sides of my family were in the Japanese American internment camps. So from
Mm.
an early age, I was taught like, we could be discriminated against just because of the color of our skin. So I think that taught me like, we never know when our group is going to be targeted. So that's why I like, want to stand in solidarity with each
Sure.
other. And
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. Just because like even Asian Americans with the anti-Asian hate during COVID, like I feel like all of our groups can be targeted at any time. So, it's important for us to stand up for any community because you never know, when our group might be targeted next.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And that human nature, we go back to that, human nature is so weak and
Mm,
compromised that
yeah.
fear.
Hmm.
I've learned in my life that you either live a life of faith and courageous faith,
Yeah.
or you live a life out of fear, and your decisions are all fear
Hmm.
based. And the average person, the average educated,
Yeah.
the average sort of normal person, unfortunately, are
Hmm.
so easily manipulated because they are so easily controlled by fear.
Yeah.
And that's just the human condition again.
Hmm.
And it doesn't take much for people to find an excuse, someone to blame, or some group to blame, because
Yeah.
in the same boat, on my father's side, I'm Jewish. Look at the
Okay.
history of the Jews.
Yeah.
You know that experience that you have even growing up as a child, as a Jewish child. You
Hmm.
experience the different levels of discrimination that exist. And I've never had discrimination that's caused me to bleed, thank God.
Hmm.
As a
Yeah.
Christian, I've been persecuted, but the reality is in this world is that human beings, they're never going to change.
Okay.
Their condition is such, but there are those that will, and
Okay.
it's a minority, and
Yeah.
that's the hard part for us, because you hope, or you wish, you're like, wow, the world could be so different if we all just imagine. And then that's where you get
Right.
into the imagine. You just
Yeah.
And that's what my hope. You see, I've been
Yeah.
through all this in a humanistic point of view, and there
Hmm.
is no hope humanistically. The only hope is from my perspective as a Christian, and I've been a
Okay.
preacher of the gospel, is in Jesus Christ, the kingdom of God. The only hope for humanity is something that's outside of humanity. It can't be
Okay.
from us. We do not. We have proven it over and over and
Yeah.
over, and thousands of years of history of human failure and brutality and corruption
Yeah.
and evil on a scale that is is shocking.
Yeah.
You testify to it. I testify to it at
Mhm.
a very small scale and to a massive scale.
Yeah.
That's the human condition. And so the panacea
Mhm.
for my search from atheist to theist, the
Mhm.
hope, the only hope is that I found the hope outside of human control, which is the
Yeah.
kingdom of God. You see, we need the exterior
Mhm.
solution because humanity has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that they cannot do it. They
Yeah.
cannot fix it. And so, and that's what gets us through the
Okay.
present darkness. You see, if you don't have hope
Uh-huh.
that is anchored in eternity ahead of you, if you don't have hope
Yeah.
that's anchored outside of this world, that when you're anchored in that
Okay.
level of existential
Yeah.
hope, that will bring you through all the
Yeah.
fires that you can face here on earth.
Yeah. No, I
Because
think for me, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, because if you don't have it,
Mhm.
you don't have you
I
have sinking sand. There's nothing else.
No, I think for me in my life, like I've had a lot of religious trauma growing up. And so like I've been up and down with, my relationship with faith, even atheist for a little bit. But now I do have faith, but I think not in that same sense that you're talking about. So I don't know. I feel like I don't know if I'm being too optimistic, but I do have like that hope and faith in humanity though. I don't know. It's just like
Yeah, I
maybe
think
just
that
one person at a
the
time. Yeah,
evidence,
it's hard.
unfortunately, the
Yeah.
evidence is against that. The evidence
Yeah.
is and the faith part. Whatever your
Mhm.
religious experiences are,
Yeah.
the same sickness that we've been discussing for the last whatever 40 minutes
Mhm.
is prevalent in the church. It's the same sickness. The same people
Yeah.
get involved in the church. The same
Yeah.
politically hungry monsters of iniquity get involved in churches, and they
Yeah.
go and they take positions of leadership because they want
Yeah.
power over. It's the same. I have had some of the deepest
Yeah.
wounds of my life
Right.
in churches, and
Yeah.
I am an unchurched person,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
have church has nothing to do with my faith and relationship with God.
No, one thing that I'm wondering though is just because the work that you do, it's like for me, like I feel like you're uplifting and empowering folks. So, what world do you think that you're fighting for? Like what do you think your efforts is going to go towards? Because I feel like you could be doing so many different, kinds of things in your life, but like just by taking a stand for people, what do you hope that will,
Well,
um,
there's
what?
many different levels to that. The
Mhm.
on a political or civic level in the United States, like free speech for artists is one of
Yeah.
my battles. I'm
Hmm.
an artist. I get trampled on by a corrupt
Okay.
ideological partisan who betrays her trust that
Yeah.
was given to her to shut me up because she
Hmm.
didn't like the content of my painting. I don't care what you paint. This is a free country, and if the
Hmm.
institution that you approach is one that should allow all viewpoints, then all viewpoints should be allowed.
Hmm.
So my fight on that level is that the next artist that gets to this museum doesn't get treated like I got treated, that they
Yeah,
get
that's
given
beautiful.
due process, that they get given
Yeah.
proper adjudication of their artwork, that they get given the chance properly
Hmm.
to be considered, that their work is properly weighed as to whether or not it should be displayed,
Yeah.
not a partisan hack just kicking
Yeah.
you to the curb because they can't stand the content of your painting. Nothing to do with you. You just
Yeah.
happen to paint it. So that's on that level. Then on the
Okay.
the broader activist level, I've realized
Hmm.
um, that, and this may lead to where we get to in this conversation as far as even running for office.
Hmm.
In my life and my quest for as a pragmatist to really see
Okay.
ways in which you can impact the world. And I've seen many ways. Like I gave you that one example. You
Yeah.
call up the people with the snowplow and you bang on the door
Hmm.
and they come
Hmm.
down and they fix it and clean. Okay, good. That was just one small example.
Yeah.
Um, but when you look at the way the world is and you look at the people that really cause change, that you can
Hmm.
have social movements, you can have great
Hmm.
spiritual movements and revivals and political
Yeah.
movements, and they can all impact for
Okay.
change. But running for office is another avenue, and
Okay.
and that's not off the charts for me. And
Okay.
so for many years it has been, because I've had no interest and they want nothing to do with that. But then over time, you start to realize that if you really want to make changes, you have to be in a position where you control the levers of power.
Right.
And if you don't, you are consistently, like, you can spend your time complaining, or you can spend your time fighting the power, or you can spend time getting in a position where you are the power, where you have the levers, and then it's now you're responsible to be the steward of that. And are you going to become a corrupt monster, or are you a servant of the people to the point that you will really? Because not everyone is a monster. Not everyone that becomes a president is a monster.
Yeah.
There are people in government who are wonderful servants, who are genuine civic servants, who love to serve, to see well-being come to their fellow man, and they serve and they do, and they act, and they legislate, and they make decisions that benefits other people. That's real.
Yeah.
Power is real.
Yeah.
And if you can seize a lever of power, then you will be tested to see, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to tweak the dials so that it turns out to be a cash machine for you? Or walk around like I'm God, look at me, everyone, and kiss my ring, everyone? or are you going to get down and wash people's feet?
Yeah.
You're going to, Christ is the greatest example of servant leadership. He's the most amazing human being because he's God in the flesh. Abraham Lincoln, he said, all men can withstand or endure adversity. But he said, if you really want to test a man or woman, give him power. So that may be the point where your listeners can say, hey, we can stand around all day complaining, or we can run. And if you can run for something, run for office. Go grab a seat somewhere where your voice will have power.
No, that's so beautiful. I had such a wonderful time talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights. But just lastly, before we wrap up, how can people find you if they'd like to connect with you?
Well, the story is at www.smithsoninstitution.com. JulianRaven.com is my art page. On Facebook, you can find me, Julian Raven, I think it's USA. On Facebook is the place I use the most. As far as I have a couple of pages. And then you have the environmental litigation, which is at 714baldwinstreet.com. That's another website. You can find out the battle that's going on there. That's shocking. It's shocking corruption I'm dealing with there. Yeah. So I am the type of person that has learned that I can't rely on people, sadly, to be like cheering me on. And most people sit on the sideline just watching. They want human nature. They want to see whether you're going to sort of climb the mountain and fall off, and then laugh at you and said, "We knew you were going to fail. We knew you." Or you'll get to the top and they'll be like, "We were supporting you all along." Unbelievable. That's human. So I have learned that I just get on with the job, and whether people come with or not, I just have to do my part and be faithful to God and what I believe. And I sleep well at night because of that. And God has blessed my family. I have a beautiful wife and children. That's what matters. I look at myself in the mirror and then say, hey, you did what was right and you stuck to your guns. You didn't compromise. Okay, I can sleep well.
Yeah. Okay. No, well, thank you so much again. I do wish you all the success. I can't wait to see you actually go on top of that mountain. I'm definitely, cheering you on as well.
I hope, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, I hope to stay connected with you, and thank you again for your time. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Denise. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.